Hello, my name is Kerry Jones. I'm the Safeguarding Coordinator at Hugh Bird College. This evening I'm joined by Merseyside Police Counter-Terrorism Squad, and they are going to introduce themselves, starting with John.
Good evening, Kerry. My name is John Ward.
Hi, my name is Sean Rees-Smith.
Darren Taylor.
And Declan Salmon.
Tonight the webinar will run for about 40 minutes, so we're aiming to start around the 6 o'clock mark. Come about 6:20 we will open up for questions, so if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask you can send those in to us, we'll have a look. And we'll aim to finish around 6:40. So what we're going to do now is start with a series of questions that have been pre-planned. And what we're going to look at is how you have your reports come in. How do they reach you? Is it different format, same format all the time?
Yeah, the referrals, as we call them, they come in from a variety of different sources. Obviously, it can be from members of the public, it can be from partner agencies, internally from within the police. So a lot of the reporting comes through email based, really. That's how it's sent in. Obviously, there's the anti-terrorism hotline number as well that we can ring. That we get the report through there sometimes. What we have a tendency of doing is when it comes through to ourselves, it then goes into like a separate department, like an intelligence department, that will process that intelligence, have a look at it to see if there's any maliciousness in it, or there's anything concerns, because you might get something where it appears low level as it would be on paper, but actually in the background there's more intelligence to suggest that there's maybe a bit more sinister going on. So it's quite a simple process, really.
Right, okay, brilliant. And how, once you've received that email, how do you then respond to that?
Again, depending on the level of it. I mean, sometimes you get a referral and straight away you can see that it's something that we need to react on, so whether it's time critical, whether it's, someone, for example, might want to be going out to Syria, travel out to Syria to fight, or someone's coming back, something along them lines, and then, or quite often, more than not, we get a lot of referrals that take a bit of time, really. So it might be someone's been saying something online that's a bit concerning, and a member of the public or someone's reported it through, or a police officer, for example, has arrested someone, and while they've been arresting them, they've said certain things, really. So that's, we respond really proportionally to what's coming in. If it's time critical, obviously we'll look at doing it as soon as we can. If it's something that we can sort of really take our time, put our foot on the ball, really, and look at, then that's what we try and do.
Fantastic. I mean, you mentioned previously that sometimes you get malicious referrals. Does that happen often?
Yeah, I mean, we've had one this week, which I won't go into detail because it's still a live one, but yeah, we've had one that's coming this week where there's been something going on within family members, and then someone's reported another one when we looked into it that it's something that's happened through like a messy divorce, really. So it's sort of and when we get to the bottom of it, so no knee-jerk reactions, really.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And it's multi-agency. Then you referred to the fact that your referrals come from different places, but you said that then the agencies that you work with, so it would be like the schools and colleges, as you said.
Yeah, very similar to any form of safeguarding. Really. It's the difference between I always want to use when we sort of sell ourselves to say prevent is safeguarding. It's the only difference with prevent is occasionally there's disruption, which I can talk about in a second, but it's a safeguarding matter, really. Like a lot of other policing and partner agency safeguarding, where you've got domestic violence, child sexual exploitation, female genital mutilation, honor-based violence stuff. It's all very, very similar. It's all in the same pot, really. So we use a multi-agency approach depending on what it is. So it may be, for example, someone who has got right-wing views, maybe not extreme right-wing views, and you look at that person and you find that the reason they've got them views is because they are living in an area where the demographics don't suit that person. And it might be just a case of utilising housing to maybe move them away from that area, and then that might sort of, it's a variety of different tactics. Something that really we always look at, what can the police fix and what can partner agencies fix to try and solve the problem.
Super. Okay. So looking at terrorism as a whole, people identify with certain types of terrorism, but there's various types, isn't there? There's not just one. Can you talk to me about the different types, like the far right wing and things like that?
Yeah, there are several, as you pointed out. It's not just centred around Islam or stuff like that. We've got extreme right wing, extreme left wing, environmentalist type stuff, and we've also obviously got the current threat from the Islamic based fundamental terrorism. So at the minute, I think we're seeing nearly a 50-50 for extreme right-wing and Islamic. Sort of getting a bit ahead on the extreme right-wing side, probably.
Oh, really?
And you know, we're using different tactics to counter that. We can use intervention providers for people to come and sit alongside them. So say we have an individual who's got strong Islamic fundamentalist views, and that they're telling us that those views are being taken out of the Quran. Then we have scholars, Islamic scholars, who work alongside these people and pick out the stuff that they are saying or turn into stuff they're using for a bad cause, to sit down and examine what the text really means. And these individuals have been away to universities in Medina and studied this sort of thing, and are sort of recognised scholars in the field.
I would say as well, because Dex alluded to there, and it's 50-50 to a degree, they seem to be our main ones at the moment.
Yeah.
Obviously we look at other stuff like IRA and other stuff that's still there in the background.
Yeah, people forget about that.
But it hasn't yet, and there's still plenty that goes on in Ireland, and obviously such our close links to them. But uniquely, we work under the Northwest Counter-Terrorism umbrella, which obviously covers Lancashire.
I was going to ask about that.
Cumbria, Cheshire, Manchester. We don't cover that area. We cover Merseyside, but we work as a team, which John will allude to a bit when we talk about the Manchester bombing, really. But uniquely within Merseyside, there's quite a heavy right-wing presence, really, and we don't really know what that is. Whether there's quite a lot of areas predominantly white, 97% white in Moseley, for example, people live there, you know, so whether that's got an element to it, we don't know. I don't know if there's ever been a study done on it, but that's where we seem to get, when other areas don't seem to have as big a right-wing problem as what we do. So.
Right, okay. And you made reference just then to the Manchester attacks, and were you involved in that?
Yeah, we were. Yeah, basically, as you can imagine, when there's been such a big incident that's happened, they have to drop resources in, not just from the Manchester area, but from Merseyside, from Lancashire, from Cumbria, from Cheshire, etc. And you can appreciate there's quite a lot of injured people there. So what we would do, we would liaise with the families. We would act as that conduit to find them information. If they need to find out how the investigation is going, we would then go back and get in touch with the investigating officers, etc. And just make sure, try and manage their welfare needs as best as we can.
Have you got any stories? I mean, obviously I know it's sensitive, but is there anything that you could share specifically that how it impacted on you or people that you worked with?
Manchester, I think when you get something so close to, I mean, obviously, you know, it's been for a while that the threat level's been severe in the country, and you know, obviously the rhetoric that's coming, particularly from ISIS and Daesh and ISIL and all this, it's been attacks being coming, really, even though we've seen it in Germany and France and the likes. We knew eventually it was going to happen on these shores, really, and then it seemed to be London based, and you know, there was obviously a couple of early attacks, Westminster Bridge and Borough Market recently and stuff. And then, but when it was so close to home, certainly under our umbrella of Manchester, it does hit home, really. You take it a bit more personal than normal. It makes sense, really. But yeah, it was interesting to do when we went over to Manchester. From that, it really, you know, when you meet the victim and stuff, it really impacts on you. You think, wow.
It's just turned 6 months since then as well.
Yeah, 6 months today. Yeah. So it was. I
mean, that the help can be as simple as John helped somebody who'd been caught up in the explosion, try and cancel a holiday flight that they were having some difficulty with.
It's just simple things.
Just simple things like that, you know.
And
they're trying to explain to the holiday company, this is the issue I've got, and they're going, well, you know, anyone could say that, but we can step in and say, well, this is who we are, and yes, it's true, like, you know. So
I give them as much support as we can, really.
But also, you know, some people that were long-term disabilities from it would get in touch with their employees, etc., and saying, you know, this are the circumstances. Just making sure that they were getting the sick pay, etc., that they were entitled to.
It's interesting when you think about it, because you don't assume that type of thing is ever going to happen to you, but then once it happens, it's the wider ramifications, what goes on that you are helping with, which people probably wouldn't expect.
I mean, people struggle to come to terms with the fact they've been caught up in that situation, and after that they've got to deal with all the day-to-day personal housekeeping of their lives, and work, like John said, near the house with work and paying bills, it's cancelling holidays. It's just simple stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Because I mean, from a prevent point of view, obviously everyone sees, you know, whether you like or dislike prevent, you know, everyone just sees it as involved in terrorism and preventing terrorism. Actually, don't see that side of it, you know. But we always, because we're obviously overtly out there speaking to people and stuff, and can do things like this where where there's a lot of the other stuff is secretive in the background, you know, that they have to keep secret, you know, for whatever reason. But like we're almost like social workers at times, you know, trying to help people and trying to fix the problems.
Well, that ties in with what you were saying about it being similar to safeguarding, isn't it?
And once I seen it particularly prior to the legislation changing in July 2015. I've been doing this since 13. I used to go to schools and say, could I ask schools to tell them about prevent, and they hammered with so many different things from safeguarding. Because when the legislation changed, then obviously we were getting asked to do more with that. Yeah. And there's quite a lot. Certainly the NUT, we're publicly going out and we don't agree with prevent. We don't think it's very good. And you know, I used to watch all the programmes and that sort of. You know, I can see what they're getting fed. Mm-hmm. I can understand what they're thinking of, but actually I've sat down with so many teachers now, and then when we explain what we do and why we do it, how we do it, and how it's really mainly about safeguarding, the penny drops, and you can see people going, oh, actually you're not here to lock people up, you're not here to criminalise people, you're here to stop people becoming the next, you know, Abidi from Manchester, you know, and trying to help people, and you've got that skewed ideology of whether it be right wing, left wing, you know, Islamic stuff that's good, you know, where they've been fed something, and we're seeing more and more, you know, certainly now as we get further down the line, we're seeing more and more vulnerable people getting drawn into this, really vulnerable people who are just getting fed packs of lies and then just getting into it, you know, and most of the time it's just people wanting to belong somewhere and feel a bit loved, really, and it sounds a bit strange, but that's how people sort of play, and it's certainly a lot of the people with mental health issues that we've dealt with, they've got, you know, severe vulnerabilities, and the people who, and I've seen the transcripts where people have been contacting them online, and they really make them feel special. Yeah. And when you do this for me, you'll be part of us, and you'll be special. When it's their normal life, they're not getting that, and it's that's the sad thing, really, you know. So that's what we're trying to always counter narrative.
And of the work that you do, is there any particular strategy that you feel works better than other strategies? Is there anything that you're involved in that you enjoy doing more?
We always like to get in there nice and early with somebody, you know. If somebody's already along that path where they're quite far advanced and they've got their goals and their mindset, it makes it that a little bit harder. But when we get that early referral, it does make it easy. We find, you know, we can offer.
The earlier the better, yeah. Because early on when we come together as a team, really, we were dealing with individuals who've been out to Syria, coming back and gone back, we're going to go back out, or individuals who've been thinking about extreme right-wing things for a long time, I'm talking years, and they really embedded thoughts, and they were really difficult to drag back to the path and say, like, you know, because we always say we're not the thought police. If you want to have right-wing views, left-wing views, that's completely fine. Our point is we are trying to stop people getting to the point where they're going to do something criminally and hurt someone, or, you know, something criminally where they're going to get themselves into prison because they're so angry. There's always a grievance, they're really angry, you know, about certain things, and I appreciate that, certainly, you know, in these times, you know, austerity and stuff, and people get really wound up about things, you know, so it's just trying to teach, but we are, as John's alluded to, that we are getting things a lot earlier now, and it just makes things a bit easier, because when we explain what we're doing and what we're trying to do, and we've got so many examples of different people we've dealt with, we can almost go, we've had this person once that's done this, and you're very similar, and, you know, that person went this way, and we try and sell it to them.
I think the unfortunate thing with the media is the media focus on the negative, don't they? And that's what people hear large scale as that.
Yeah, and you know, preventing, we have to do one bad thing, we can do 100 good things, and a lot of the time we can't promote our good work, really, unless it's community based, because we can't put, you know, a person in the Prescott, and this person wanted to fight for ISIS, or this person wanted to fight for the YPG, or this person wanted to, you know, be in the extreme right wing or left wing, and so we can't do that. But if you get one bad story, and there was a job in Lancashire where there was a child who'd said that he wrote, when they were doing a story that about describe your house, he said, I live in a terrorist house. And what he meant to put was terrorist house, and the front page of the press saying Prevent went out and spoke to this child, and that's completely untrue. What has happened was he had put, I live in a terraced house, which wasn't massively concerned. He was only a young child. He sort of seen the error of that, but he'd also put in that something had gone on with a family member of a safeguarding issue, nothing to do with terrorism, and a safeguarding officer went out to speak to the family, and then that got blown up into preventative terrorism, and it was absolutely not the sort. And you know, and that's unfortunate, really, and that's what we really try and I know the Prescott challenged heavily over that by Lancashire. Because it's just, you know, I understand they need to sell papers and sensationalise things, but not to the detriment of what we're trying to protect people.
There's no benefit to that, is there? No, not, you know, particularly when it's as large scale as it is at the moment.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about the referrals coming in and you having to deal with these referrals, respond to picking pieces up for people like in Manchester, how do you deal with that? What are your coping mechanisms?
You guys into that one, yeah?
We have some very good banter in the office between ourselves.
Does that work?
Yeah, it tends to work.
Yeah.
Keeps everyone sort of grounded, I suppose.
It's a bit of that before we started as well.
Yeah. Well, that was quite tame.
Keep the rest off the
Yeah. I mean, we've all been in the police quite a long time, to be fair, so we've all seen, from a criminal point of view, really horrific things at times that so you can become hardened to it anyway, really, and I suppose certain things do play in your mind more than others, and that, but
we do become hardened, but we don't forget that these are people behind all this.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Ultimately, we've just been to on some inquiries today, and from the individual we're trying to safeguard through the rest of his family, there's issues with all of them. You know, there's drug abuse, there's alcohol abuse, there's lots of other things with other family members, and you know, whilst we go out to safeguard that one individual, we're also looking at the wider family as well. We can't go and neglect them. We've got to be looking at everyone else. So.
And do you find that a lot when you get a referral, that it's not just one issue, that there's several issues linked?
Yeah. It's just inevitable, you know, and a lot of terrorism links into crime stuff, and you know, and the vulnerabilities. You know, I say more and more now, we're getting more people with severe mental health issues, and you know, the internet's such a powerful thing, and people are on it a lot more than they ever have been, and you know, I'm amazed at how many young people are on it now. I mean, I didn't know when I was 14, 15, I didn't know what right wing and left wing was, but now it's just, you know, literally we get so many referrals off schools about kids who've got really strong views on it, and sometimes it's just because of the power of the internet. You know what YouTube's like, you go on one video leads to another, but we're always looking, well, what's going on in the background? Is it mum and dad? Is it somebody else? Well, what's making this child start talking this, you know, like maybe from a racist point of view, and or you know, or right wing point of view. So
we're quite fortunate as well, aren't we? Because we've been able to foster good relationships with other agencies, especially mental health teams. So they know as soon as they've got a concern, they will be back in touch.
Oh, good.
And it's using these other teams, isn't it? We're able to you know.
Yeah, the change of the legislation in 2015 really helped us, because it sort of focused the mind of everyone. Everyone has to buy into it now to a degree. So, and as we move forward to that, you can more and more people going, all right, it's not spying, it's not trying to criminalise people. You know, it's genuinely trying to safeguard them. So, you know, the partner agencies are really good now. We have a lot of set up quarterly meetings, monthly meetings, where we got all the agencies from local authorities, where we discuss issues, and if a job comes in and we need that wraparound, we can sort that out.
Even going back to the schools, isn't it? Like Dad said before, Dick and I, we've done loads of presentations, haven't we? And I don't think we've ever really got heckled, have we, at the end of it? It's just about explaining to people that we don't send people down in front roofs, from helicopters through people's front doors. You know, everything we do it very discreetly. We use loads of integrity, and we're getting that early heads up from the schools now. The same schools that will ring us up with somebody different. If you know how we're going to, you know, how we will deal with it, we'll deal with it correctly.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get, because I know a lot of schools at the beginning were really concerned about referring young children to about them getting criminalised, or you know, or I don't want it to come from me, you know, that type of thing. And we get that from members of the public. And sometimes we've had it from family members where someone's reported someone, but they've said, please don't say it's from me. And then we've literally, there's no way of knocking on that door and speaking to that individual without them knowing it was from that family member, and we just haven't done it. We've gone back to the family member and go, right, we've done what we can do it in the background, you know, we'll keep a bit of a watching brief on this person just to make sure they're safe for now. You know, just to protect the other people really. So I urge people that, you know, if they are going to report, then, you know, we do it discreetly. We don't just because you've reported in, we're going to go and you know, knock on someone's door.
There's several people that we've worked on. We've never actually met them. They don't even know we've done what we've done.
Yeah.
Because whilst our partner agencies are dealing with this individual, they weren't aware of the overall thing. So we bring them all together, and then they go, okay, I see what you mean, and they make sure medications prescribed on time, things like that. It just needed that sort of intervention, and we've never even met them.
Brilliant.
So.
Okay. Fantastic, thank you very much. So what we're going to do now is we just turned 6:20, so we're going to open up for questions now. Okay, so questions come through that says, what types of things would you look out for on the internet and social media that would lead you to believe there are terrorism acts being talked about or referred to? Would it be as simple as looking out for specific words or code words that would give you a lead?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think we don't specifically go looking for that. Other people
bring it to your attention.
What we rely on is other people's moral compasses, not our own.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? We're asking other people to, if they see an individual who they think is acting differently, has changed, or sort of talking about that one topic predominantly over everything else they've ever talked about, or, you know, saying, look at this, showing, you know, they have a screensaver of certain stuff. You know, and IT is only one part of it, but, you know, in relation to this question, we don't specifically monitor anyone's IT. Stuff's brought to us where people have been perhaps looking at beheadings on YouTube and stuff like that, and they will be referred into us. If somebody watches a beheading video on YouTube, does that make them a terrorist? No. No.
And I suppose what you're doing and going into the schools and the different providers that you go into is you're giving other people that message that if they see those keywords or those key images or behaviour that they don't think is usual to
because one swallow doesn't make a summer, does it? Do you know what I mean?
No.
So someone being seen looking at one individual, we're looking at sort of not multiple of things, but several different things building a picture as opposed to one particular instance. So, you know, before we start to become involved in it.
And you know, from an internet point of view, I think most of the time, certainly the ones we've seen recently, it is just a safeguarding issue. When, as Dex said, watching a beheading video or something along them lines, you know, or even if it's just sharing memes of, like, you know, like Hitler and stuff like that, you know, then for me, when I look at it, my first reaction is, it's 13-year-old, 12-year-old, what are they doing watching that? You know, what's one of the parents doing? What's the school doing? You know, and most of the time, that's what we go back and say, listen, no concern to this, but, you know, that needs addressing. You know, why is that child being allowed to look at that? You know, because I wouldn't let my kids look at that. You know, and it's just sort of getting people aware. And most of the time, the parents aren't aware of it, and you know, and it's just that bit of, you know, awareness training around, you know, but of what to look for really, and how to try and stop them. I mean, we've had some really young ones looking at stuff like, you know, 6, 7, 8, you know, and it's been referred through, and we had one where an 8-year-old had wrote this really in-depth, powerful poem about Hitler being great, and he was 8, and I remember reading it thinking, wow. And then it just turned out, when we spoke to parents, it was literally just the power of the internet. He'd just got Googling things, gone onto YouTube, and then just thought, Hitler's really good, and, you know, and because there's plenty of stuff out there on the internet that say Hitler's great.
It's really strong.
And you know, one was great, and one was, no problem, and she, you know, when the internet was taken from child and monitored, and that's all it is most of the time, and they're sort of grateful for that sort of heads up, like, you know, so no doors getting smashed in, there's no one getting arrested, you know.
No one going in by the rope, as we've said before. One's come in that says, can you advise the difference between left and right wing?
Oh, to me, right. Well, right wing, that we had an input the other day to explain to us that people with right wing views doesn't necessarily make them extreme right wing. So what we'd say is, you know, people are allowed to have opinions so long as they don't go out and subject other people to harm, injury, threat or fear for those ideologies. So extreme right wing, a lot of the time you're looking at sort of white supremacist type stuff, Combat 18, obviously the most recently prescribed extreme right wing group, 16th of December last year, National Action, and then Scottish Dawn and the subset NS131. You know, so those are the extreme right-wing groups. People, Britain First, I think, is a political party. Sometimes people think that they're an extreme right-wing group. They actually sometimes maintain a political presence in by-elections. So, you know, they're an organisation which you can vote members on. And the extreme left-wing, you've got your anti-capitalist sort of people, to the point, you know, your anti-fascist people, and obviously we had the big coming together in Liverpool on St George's Plateau and then at Lime Street Station, where these two sides came together, and the level of violence was pretty horrendous.
Was it?
Yeah, it was pretty horrendous. So these two groups have a long-standing hatred of each other's views and opinions, and when they come together it's not very pleasant.
I'm just going back to what I said before, you know, we're not the thought police. If you want to be right-wing, you want to be left-wing, it's fine. Just don't harm anyone to do it, you know, and that's what it's about really. And I think from a left-wing point of view, sometimes they get painted, the extreme left-wing side of things, that they get painted that they're almost the good guys against the bad guys of the right-wing type thing. But it's, you know, the levels of violence can be just equal on both sides at times, you know. And I'm sure if I sat with the left wing and watched it from their point of view, they, you know, the right would look bad. I'm sure if I sat with the right wing and watched the left, they look bad, you know. But ultimately, you know, fighting in the street. I mean, we were at Lime Street the day that large parts of National Action were locked in the left luggage there, and there was a lot of left wing there. And as Dex said, the level of violence was pretty heavy. And I remember there was a couple of kids walking past with them all, and they were petrified, you know. And it was just thought, you know, people just need to sort of, you know, I know what they were trying to do. They're trying to stop the right wing marching through, and I get all that side of things, but there's got to be levels of it. You know, people have got to, you know, we're all, it's freedom of speech. We're all allowed to speak. We're all, you know, as long as we do it in the right way.
Interesting. The next question that I've got is, how shall I protect my child on their social media account?
I think you're the experts on the answer.
Yeah, well, out of us four, that's pretty bad, to be fair. But,
I think be aware, isn't it?
Yeah.
Be aware what your kids are looking at online.
Okay.
You can lock down social media accounts, you can lock down your internet at home, you can even get filters on your internet, so if you search the wrong word, your internet won't allow that to come through, you know what I mean?
And it's not just social media, it is all sorts of internet, you know, that's the downside of it, and it sometimes can creep under the radar, you know, certain things, as say YouTube, you can go on one thing and it can sort of feed to another, you know, and it's quite easy to find, and that's just YouTube, and there's plenty of other sites out there, you know, so it's not an easy one to do, you know. My children are at an age where they're looking at anything, you know, untoward, they need to look at it at the moment, but maybe always checking the history and stuff, and watch what it is, you know, and it's a really, really difficult one this day and age, to be fair.
Good advice, good. Do you think the increased emphasis on democracy and education has promoted shift to radical political views, or is there a connection there?
To be honest with you, from my perspective, from the people I've dealt with to date, it's not been, the problem hasn't occurred in education because most of them haven't spent long enough in school.
Right.
A lot of people, you know, and we jokingly say that most of the people early start in life is the same, to the point where they find that ideology, and then that's where they move off. But a lot of people's have had poor start in life, you know, the housing's not been good, his mum's been on her own invariably with lots of siblings, and dads aren't about, you know, and they fail at school. A lot of the friends, they socialise themselves because they have poor self-confidence, they'll lock themselves in a bedroom, and then that's when the computer use increases, and that's when you spend longer on it, you start looking at more varied things, and a lot of the individuals haven't spent long enough in mainstream education to have their views challenged, and when they do come to school, they find, or college, they find it difficult because they have one topic of conversation. Other people go, I'm not going to sit and talk to him because all he ever talks about is this. Yeah. So again, they find themselves isolated when they are with people, and then they lose self-confidence again. Yeah. So it's about building. When we unfortunately we get them at the wrong end of that, and they've already been spending a long time alone in the room, and we've got to try and build their confidence back up then.
And then of course it's unpicking everything that's been done at that point, isn't it?
Absolutely. And their ideology becomes tighter and tighter, and sort of like sort of equated to water going down the plug hole. It's going faster and faster around in the mind, and that's all they're thinking about. Yeah.
I mean, I think some of the ones we've worked with for a long time, we're talking years, 2 to 3 years, you're almost building a really good relationship with them. I remember, well, we've had it a couple of times with a couple of different individuals, but one rang us once, and we've been working with for 3 years, and he rang us, how are you doing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, what were you up to? Oh, I've missed you. And he genuinely said that, because and we were like, oh, that's okay, yeah, and because his friendship group was so poor, and he just want to belong somewhere. People just vulnerable, and I don't know whether we are in an age more and more of people just locked behind closed doors as much, and we haven't got as big strong communities as we used to, and people just get on with their own lives, and maybe that sort of thing is going on, and people just, they've got nowhere to sort of tap into. Certainly if the family's not the greatest, and then they're just drifting along, waiting to become something. And then I mean, I'm CID officer for many years. So when I first started as well, I was a bit more cynical about, it was black and white for me. You lock people up and you throw away the key and that sort of thing. But it's sort of, I think, the more I've done this, and we've turned so many lives around, and people being involved in it, you realise that they just need that little bit of help, a little bit of support. I know Deck's saying they weren't in education. They're not, just by any stretch of the imagination, say they're stupid. They actually look, sometimes they're a lot more intelligent than I am. They're really intelligent people, but they just become focused on this one topic, and it just really engulfs them, the whole thing. And if you can get them to see other things of life, what's good about life, then they sort of they blossom a bit more really and come away from it.
It can be quite rewarding, can't it? Sometimes when you work with somebody. We work with some people who are quite intelligent individuals, people that run their own businesses as well. We had one guy, didn't we, who basically been in the year, been a squaddie, seen all sorts of things while he was fighting out in the Middle East, suffered really bad with post-traumatic stress disorder, so much so he wanted to take his own life, but he didn't have the courage to do it. His coping mechanism was, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go out and fight against ISIS. So if I die fighting for a good cause. But the referral came in very early to us, and we were able to work with him from an early stage. Really nice fella. He's got a really solid family background behind him, but we were able to get him that help that he needed to deal with post-traumatic stress. And he turned his life around, he's running his own business again.
And again, we had to use partner agencies to solve that, because as the police, we can't do that. We can't help someone who's got PTSD, so we have to get the right sorts of mental health around him. And to be fair, it was great. It was great. And as John said, it can be rewarding that when you see.
And obviously, he sounds like an older guy. If he was running his own business, and that's not necessarily the assumption, is that you assume to start younger, maybe.
And to be fair, a lot of it is young males. That we do have the odd female, but a lot of it is early 18s to I'm talking about the real ones that we're concerned about, really. Normally, the ones lower than that, they're not a massive concern, really, because most of the time they're still in school, or that we can do stuff with the parents, and or whatever, and get them sorted out. But they are young males, really, that are like that. But as I say, we do occasionally get the odd older one that creeps in.
Okay, we're going to do the last question now, so I'll let you choose from the list you've got in front of you.
Yeah. Does prevent really exist in this area? We are a small community in Bootle. Are we being overly cautious? I asked it. You answer it.
Answer it as carefully as I can. Yes, there have been people in and around the Bootle area who, a particular individual, grew up in Bootle and was part of an extreme right-wing organisation that was prescribed. People don't think this is some of our colleagues on Merseyside don't actually think it's happening on Merseyside. It is, we're dealing with individuals on a daily basis that are either at the start of a journey or midway or really good way along the road. So yes, it's all around, and I'm not going to say Bootle's a hotbed of Merseyside, because it's not. We have, from Southport to Speke, from Heswell to Haydock, we cover the whole thing, and there's people in all of these areas, and whilst Bootle is a small sort of township, if you like, isn't it? The actual county itself is what we cover. So yeah, we're in and about, the whole place, and it might not just be the individual; it's their families, as I said before. We're looking at as well. We're looking to safeguard them.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you for your questions. We're going to finish off now with a few more pre-planned questions. So, you spoke before about people going out to fight for ISIS and what happens when they go out and when they return. And I know that me and John have had a conversation about repatriation.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. It's quite topical actually, because we've just been to see somebody today, haven't we? But we've got somebody at the moment that we did quite a lot of work with to try and persuade them not to go out and fight against ISIS. Unfortunately, they didn't take our advice, and they're out there at the moment. We are obviously wanting that person to come back to the UK. We don't want him to come back basically in a coffin. We want him to come back so he can live his life as best as he can in the UK. But what we will do, we'll offer support to his family. Yeah. So with his parents, etc., we're keeping them in the loop with what we actually know at the moment, and vice versa. If they're in contact with him, it's peace of mind for us as well, isn't it?
I think what we get asked an awful lot by people from all, when we do from schools or different types of professionals, is if people want to go out and fight in Syria, whether it be for ISIS or against ISIS, why don't you just let them go? And then, what's it got to do with us? And the reason the threat level went up to severe in August 14 was the concern was people going out fighting in these areas, whether it be Syria, Iraq, Libya, whatnot, and then coming back with PTSD and or maybe coming back with a mission, or coming back with even more sense of grievance because they've seen, they might have gone out there to help, to be a doctor or whatever, but they come back having seen what they see, the West have bombed this and they've done that and the other, and for whatever reason, and then they've got that grievance against the West, and then that threat's there. The difficulty we have, and a lot of people don't know this, is that you can't leave people stateless. So if you're dual passports, and we have done this in Merseyside, but if you're dual passport and say you've got a British passport and maybe say, I don't know, pick one out there like a Yemenese passport or something, when someone goes out of the country, Amber Bloods can sign a form and say, yeah, we can take your British passports off you, so you can't come back into the country because you're Yemenese. But if I've only got a British passport, if I went out there, I've got to be allowed to come back in. We can't leave you stateless. They can't just say, well, we're locking the doors, you're not allowed to come back in again. So there's no point in in letting these people just go, because you're setting up a cycle of things for future down the line. Also, what we've had on Merseyside is families going out there, and we've had really young children. We've stopped families, they've been arrested. You can't. That 2-year-old child, 3-year-old child, 6-year-old child, they've got no say in mum and dad taking them. They don't know what's going on, going to Syria. So it's, again, safeguarding issue. All right, mum and dad might want to go out there, but fortunately the child's got no say. So again, it becomes a safeguarding issue, and then we use the partner agency to deal with it that way. So.
And I think the other thing that needs to be highlighted is that the government's advice is not to travel, whether it to be fighting against ISIS,
of course,
and especially for ISIS. The people should be aware that once you get over there is no municipal support in Syria as such. So should something happen, you're very much on your own in that country, and getting back it's a really difficult job, to get back, whether you're alive or whether we've got to try and repatriate your body. But it really is, the advice is please don't go, because that really does create issues for your wider family as well, because a lot of the individuals many of the individuals we've dealt with would like to have served in the military, but due to mental health or physical, asthma or something like that, they can't get in. They see this as the next bit of beau geste adventure, and they go off, and it sort of all seems very adventurous, but it's just not.
Right, okay, well that's all been very serious but very interesting. So I'd like to move slightly to a more positive point of view. and talk about the relationships and the rapport that you've got within community groups. You know that you've talked a lot about the multi-faith.
Yeah, we do. We're fortunate. We've been able to build a very good relationship with the mosques in the Merseyside area. The imams, we all know who we are. The trustees know who we are. And through those relationships, we've been able to work with them and run an annual five-side football tournament. Basically, last year we had 8 teams that turn up, 6 different mosques. We've got our own preventative football team. We're rubbish, but we give it a good go. We're all trying to lose a little bit of weight, so we're a little bit quicker, because some of these kids we're playing against are really young. But it's all about breaking down those barriers, building up trust. Everybody knows who we are. There's nothing sneaky about what we don't prevent. Everything we do is out there in the open. And we'd like to think that if somebody did have a problem or a concern about somebody, then they knew who we are, they know they can trust us, and they would approach us.
We only seen yesterday in Germany, there was 6 locked up in Germany for trying to attack the Christmas markets over there. What was happening last year, and you know, reading the reports, it was on the press saying that it was members of the community, who, you know, from fellow asylum seekers who reported these people to the police, and then they got arrested, and the attack plan was there. You know, it's massively important that like the communities out there are aware of the role they play in this. You know, and understanding that it's not just a case. They've got arrested on this occasion. Sometimes it might not be that case that they might not get arrested, but you know, sometimes you can't all be on partners or the police, you know, because we're not always there dealing with these people, and that, you know, so if you hear something or you see something, you've got to say something.
You know, people should be aware that, you know, a lot of the mosques are looking to build relationships with the wider community. They hold a mosque open day, usually in around about February, you know, and the doors are flung open, invite people in, and they feed you, and, you know, show you around.
Last year's one in Southport.
And it's about dispelling rumours. You know, if people don't know what's going on, then they're usually frightened of stuff, you know. And just as an aside fact, where was the first mosque ever in Britain?
Liverpool.
In Liverpool.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that particular mosque are always keen for, you know, for people to go down and look at what they're doing. They're doing some amazing work down there.
The relationship's that good now with the mosques that we've had cases where we've had extreme right-wingers who wanted to target the Islamic community. We've been able to take them to the mosques and introduce to the imams, and we've shown around to try and educate them a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's worked. It's worked, you know, positive results.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we also hold every quarter we've got the Faith Forum, which is a variety of different faiths, really, you know, from Islamic to, you know, Jewish, you know, Buddhist, Sikh, Hindu, and we talk about all things preventing what's going on in Merseyside, and they bring stuff to the table as well, you know. So it's sort of so we meet every quarter, and you know, the next one's in January, and it's great. I mean, it's been going 2 years that now, and it really has broken down the barriers, and so much so that the imam from Southport went on the Holocaust Remembrance Day and actually spoke at the synagogue on the back of that, because they didn't know each other. And what I found was really interesting was when we first set it up 2 years ago, when the imam from Southport come to it, he met the imam from Al Rama, which is down in the Toxic area, and they didn't even know there was a mosque in each area, and you'd think that they would do it, because it's not massive Merseyside, but they didn't know, and they've all since started building up their relationships, you know, which is really good to be fair to everybody.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to be bringing it to a close now, because we are just getting on for 6:45. So just going to ask if there was a message that you could send across to parents that would enable them to prevent their
Well, just saw on the iPad, one of the questions that was flashing through it was from a concerned parent. You know, if anyone has got any concerns, that, you know, we've got our phone number, and, you know, we're available on the Merseyside Police switchboard. Ring and speak to us first. You know, we'll meet in a coffee shop somewhere, and we'll do it discreetly, but, you know, don't let it get too far. Please come and speak to us early.
Because of course that ties into what John was saying about early intervention is best, isn't it?
And sometimes it's just a little bit of advice and saying, no, we're seeing quite a lot of this, because we're living in a world of WhatsApp and, you know, all this is where people are sending all sorts of things to each other, and you know, people I'm going to find and going, oh my God, what's this on your phone and stuff like that, you know. So it's sort of, we're seeing tons and tons of that at the moment. So I'd just say, don't be overly concerned sometimes, you know. Most of the time it's something and nothing, like, you know, just maybe a little bit of education for the child and stuff. So just, but feel free, you know. We're obviously on Twitter as well, so the Mayor Paul Prevents follows on there. We put some sort of good stuff on there as well, so bits of advice and links that we got off the government and that, but we're always on the end of the phone if people need to speak to us.
it might be the parent recognises something, is trying to get help, is struggling, come speak to us. It's amazing what we can be achieved, and we're behind something, you know.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, and that's it for tonight. So thank you for joining in. Thank you for your questions. Good night.